All right. So this is Ask Me Anything from Zoom and Facebook Live at the same time. I am Sandra Lee with miracleinspirations.com and the Breathe Life Inspirations blog. I've been having a series on the blog of your health on stress and what you can do. If you want to subscribe, go to my website and subscribe to my newsletter. I'll send that out to you every week. I've been doing Facebook Live here for a while, and this is the first time on this new way of doing it because Facebook Live was cutting out on me 20 plus minutes into my videos. So I talked about bone density 2 days before you get to see it. Today we're going to talk about bone density because this is an important topic. So I talked about foot positioning a couple days ago, and foot positioning is a really big illustrator of this whole bone density issue. I'm going to review a little bit of what I talked about foot positioning. Okay, so when I stand, ideally, I want my foot position to be parallel. So when my foot position is parallel, when I walk, the weight transitions through the middle of the foot, and that these big toes in particular provide a lot of support. But really all the toes provide support for the weight. But when I turn out and my weight transitions, it goes through this place here. So imagine that here's the toe, the big toe, and here's where it connects to the foot. Okay? So when I put my weight here, I put a huge amount of pressure, weight, is supported by that joint between the big toe and the rest of the foot. So that's where a bunion forms. And that forms there because I am putting demand on that tissue area to support weight, which says to the body, we need more mass here. I need to bulk this up so that it can support this whole body weight that is being required to be transitioned over that bone, okay? Leading to the body putting calcium deposits, mineral deposits in to bulk that bone up, bunion that causes distortion of the position of the toe, distortion of the foot. So when I have parallel foot position, I decrease the amount of that happens, okay? So it's like the weight is supported by the foot as a whole, particularly these larger toes, okay? And not so much going onto that one joint there, okay? So this is the first illustrator of this whole what creates bone density question. Demand creates bone density. So let's talk about how this looks with the rest of your body. So let's talk about another postural issue, okay? So imagine that here is my foot, if this is the front of the body, okay? Here is my foot, and here is the ankle of the foot, and I want my body weight to be over the ankle. So we talked before about the arches. There's 26 bones in the foot creating 3 arches. The middle of the foot arch, there's a lateral arch, and then there's an arch that goes across the ball of the foot. Okay, so when I put weight on this, that causes these bones to be strong enough to support the weight. So if I do that, that puts demand on the bones all the way up. Okay, so it's like I have the leg bone and the knee, and then the other leg bone, and then the 2 halves of the pelvis, the sacrum, and then the rest of the body up there. So when I stand with my foot underneath my body weight, that then puts demand that they be strong on all of these bones. Does that make sense? This is a big, huge part of the bone density issue, okay? So where do a lot of people, most people actually stand with their posture? Most people have their hips forward. So it's like if this is the ankle, right, and the hips shift forward, and then the upper body has to shift back. Because if the upper body didn't, then my whole body would be sticking out that way, right? So I bring my upper body back. So it's like I am in a C shape with my body if my hips are forward and my upper body is back. Let's look at this. Well, let's talk about one thing first. So when I do that, that causes the muscles of my feet and the muscles of my legs to work really hard to hold this body up, cantilevered in space like that. Does that make sense? So if I stand upright with my body weight over my ankles, then the upper body is stacked on top of the lower body, and then it's supported by the foot. Much less work for the body to maintain that position. But now let's look at the bones, okay? So it's like if my whole body is stacked like this on top of my ankle, the lower legs, the ankles, lower legs, the bones of the upper legs, right? They are all supporting upper body mass. So there's demand placed on the bones that they be strong because they have to support the weight. If I am doing this, my weight is forward, my hips are forward, and my upper body is back, there's a lot less weight being supported by the bones. The muscles are doing a lot of the supporting because they're holding you up, okay, in this cantilevered position. So if I am like this, the bones relatively do not have as much weight that they are being required to support. And so the body says, I don't need to put so much bone mass there. I don't need to put calcium and minerals and the other resources that I have available to put in the bones. Because I don't need the bones to be strong because they're not supporting as much weight. There's more weight support being required by the bones when I am standing upright. Okay, so bone is, we think of bone as being hard, but bone is actually, when it's alive, it's very flexible. It's like you imagine you take a branch from a tree and it's on the tree and it's flexible. You cut it off the tree, it's still flexible for a little while. And then when it dries out, it's hard and brittle. Our bones are kind of like that. Okay, so we want them to be both strong and brittle, strong and flexible when we are alive. And so inside the bones, there's these holes, trabeculae, right? So it's like the bone is not solid mineral. There's actually quite a bit of space inside there. Because if you had a solid bone, it would be really heavy. So for our bodies to be able to be mobile, we need there to be a lot of space inside there, not all bone. Okay, so the bone actually has quite a bit of holes in it, and the little walls between the holes, right? If my body is not putting as much minerals into my bones, because they don't have to be strong, because I'm not requiring them to be strong, right? Then it makes these little walls between the air spaces. I don't know if it's actually air, probably it's fluid, but anyway, if I don't need my bones to be quite so strong because it's not supporting weight, then it's going to pull some of the minerals out from these walls between the holes. Does that make sense? So it's like lots of little holes make up a bone, and that gives you this strong structure. But if the walls between the holes are actually thin because the body doesn't need to put more minerals in there, right? Then that makes that bone less strong and more likely to break. What is one of the most common injuries that elderly people have? Hip fracture. Hip fractures occur because someone has osteoporosis. What is osteoporosis? Osteo is bone, porosis is holes. Holes in the bone. Now, I just told you that healthy bones have holes in them, and they do. But if the holes get bigger, because less mineral is going into that bone structure, then the bones get more brittle, more likely to break. So you take an older person and they fall. If their bones are healthy, if an older people can have healthy bones, because they've done what it takes to support that, right, then they're less likely to be badly injured or to be injured at all. There are, as a massage therapist, I know that there are risks for working with some older people. If they have severely osteoporotic bones, right, then you can't push on their bones and you can't push on them and do massage because you could break their bones with something as minor as grabbing their tissue, because putting pressure on the bones, if the bones are weak, is not safe. So it's like you don't want osteoporosis. So one of the things you can do is to have your posture be weight of your body over your ankles, stacking your body up so that your upper body weight is requiring the bones below to be strong. Let's talk a little bit more about hip fracture. Okay, so it's like if we look at the body from the front, there's this body weight coming down, and then you have the pelvis, two halves of the pelvis, and then you have the femurs. The femurs are the leg bones. And where hip fracture occurs is out here, okay? So it's like for this weight to be supported from above, to come down, it goes down to the pelvis, and then it goes down, and it's supported by the bones of the legs, right? So it's like we need these leg bones to be required to support this upper body weight. So if we look at this, when I am doing this, there is less mass, less weight being supported by the two halves of the pelvis and the leg bones, leading to osteoporosis, body not putting as much mineral in there because it doesn't need to be as strong, making that older person not as strong in general, and their bones wind up being less dense, more likely to be fractured. Okay, let's talk about osteopenia. Osteoporosis is where you have diagnosed osteoporosis, meaning the holes in the bones are too big. Okay, osteopenia is the diagnosis that they would give someone when their bone density is not as bad as osteoporosis, but they're going in that direction. So that's a point where doctors might recommend that someone take a medication to help with their bone density. So let's talk about these medications. Fosamax is one of the more common of those bone density drugs. And I always get the name wrong. They're bisphosphonates. That might not be the actual name, but bisphosphonates, something like that. It's a fluorine compound, contains fluoride. Okay, fluoride is one of the elements in the periodic table of elements. And so these bisphosphonates, Fosamax I'm just going to call it, right, is supposed to help people to increase their bone density when they have osteopenia or possibly for osteoporosis. I don't know if they give it to people for osteoporosis too. I imagine they probably do. Okay, but the whole point is to increase bone density. And they say that it works. So it's like when they do the scan that measures your bone density, they show when people are taking Fosamax that their bone density increases. But there's more to the story than that. So what does Fosamax do? My understanding is that Fosamax causes the osteoclasts to not pull bone apart. So let's talk about osteoclasts and osteoblasts, because this is a very important part of understanding bone density. Okay, so you have osteoblasts in the body that build bone tissue up, build more bone with osteoblasts. Okay, osteoclasts are the cells in the body that take bone apart. And we want these both to happen. Every cell in the body gets replaced. Some very frequently, others much less frequently. The bone cells get replaced less often than do some of the other tissues, but they do still get replaced. And so you need osteoclasts to pull the old bone out and then osteoblasts to build new bone in. It's important for health. But when you take Fosamax, Fosamax suppresses the function of the osteoclasts. It makes it so that osteoclasts do not pull bone apart. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't encourage the osteoblasts to produce more. It doesn't cause the osteoblasts to build more bone in. So you get suppression of the osteoclasts, so the old bone tissue stays, but you don't have more bone going in. Can you see how there's an imbalance here? You took something that was naturally balanced, where the body says, okay, this is how much osteoblasts we need, this is how much osteoclast activity we need, so that we have strong and stable bones. But when you suppress the function of osteoclast, so the old bone stays, but you don't build up osteoblast activity, you have a lot of old bone tissue that winds up staying. And again, they do a scan and they say, oh yes, your bones are more dense. Well, but they're more brittle. They're not flexible as bones need to be. So it's ineffective, in my opinion, taking Fosamax or these bone building drugs. Now, I have to tell you, okay, this is a disclaimer. I am not a healthcare provider. I am not a doctor. I am not able to diagnose, prescribe, or anything. Okay? Everything I'm telling you in all of these Facebook Lives is common sense stuff that you can go find out yourself. And it's based on my close to 20 years of self-education and learning about this kind of stuff. Okay? So now we've got this osteoblasts and osteoclasts. I also wanted to talk about the nutrients. What nutrients support bone density? Because it's important, right? So it's like you have to have your demand that causes your bones to be strong, but you also need to be getting the nutrients that your body needs to be able to put into your bones. So people think that calcium is what you need to take. And yes, you do need some calcium, but it's way more complicated than that. There are other nutrients that you need to get to be able to have healthy bones. If you take just calcium supplements and not the other supplements that you need, you can actually have more problems with calcium deposits and bone spurs. I suppose it could possibly also affect kidney stones. I'm not sure about that, to tell you the truth, right? But you're going to have more issues with calcium being in the wrong place if you're taking the wrong kinds of supplements. There's many different forms of calcium supplements. I'm not going to go into those right now. Okay, some of them are basically just like seashells, right? But chopped up. So technically it's calcium, but it's not a form that your body can use. So if you get calcium supplements from a high quality supplement manufacturer that pays attention to the bioavailability, the availability of your body to be able to utilize that supplement, then you're more likely to get one that's actually going to have the nutrients in a form that your body can use. Okay, so just understand the form of the calcium is really important. But it's also really important that you get magnesium. This is a story that most people are not aware of. Fortunately, a lot of higher quality nutritional supplements, calcium supplements, have a balance of calcium and magnesium. So really, you need just as much calcium as magnesium. Maybe even more magnesium than calcium, because there's calcium in a lot of our foods. So making sure you get enough magnesium, because the magnesium-calcium balance is important. Okay? Plus, you also need boron. Boron is another mineral that you need for healthy bones. Then we talk about vitamin D. And a lot of people are aware that vitamin D is important for bone health. But there's another part of that story as well. Just like calcium and magnesium, in addition to vitamin D, you need vitamin K2. So if you're taking just vitamin D and calcium, magnesium, and ideally the other minerals you need, okay, but you're not getting the vitamin K2, then your bones might not get stronger. K2 is important to help your body put that calcium, those minerals, in the right place. So if you're not getting the vitamin K2, then you might not be putting the bones in. And so it's like those calcium deposits might go someplace else where you don't need it. So you could have bone spurs and stuff like that then. I don't know if that's really the case, but I do know that if you don't have the K2, it's not going to go where you want it to go. And there are some supplements that have vitamin D2. You want vitamin D2, not D3. D2 is the form that your body wants and uses better. okay? And K2. Some supplements have both vitamin D2 and K2 in the same formula so that you make sure you get both. Now, you don't need large amounts of K2, but some is really important. So those are all important factors when it comes to bone density. I hope you found that interesting. I am Sandra Lee with miracleinspirations.com and Breathe Life Inspirations blog and the Your Health on Stress and What You Can Do video blog series. I have been doing Facebook Live here for a while, and I have a range of recordings mostly about food and eating. I am starting to talk about other things as well now. So this whole bone density thing, for example, is a different range of topics. Send this to your friends if you think anybody would benefit from this information. It'd be lovely to have more people. Give me some reviews on Facebook. There's a link on the left side of the Facebook page about reviews, and send some reviews for the lives and for, bodywork, healing, biofield tuning, whatever. Thank you. Sandra Lee of miracleinspirations.com. Breathe. Have a wonderful day.